When you look at where it's priced, where the price ratio is, its historical context, geologically and price, going back thousands of years, the increase in demand in solar, in warfare, in green, in digital, and the decrease in supply, where again, we're going to have another shortfall last year and a third shortfall this year in 2023. At what point does the whole system break? And what you're talking about, when you have mainstream revising numbers and saying, yeah, we're running out of silver, well, maybe it's more and more of this type of information that wakes up the public. Unfortunately, I feel it's going to be an event where all of a sudden silver just becomes unobtainium and goes to the moon, where before the mainstream wakes up.
In 2023, global silver demand is expected to decline by 10%, reaching 1.14 billion ounces. A study warns that the growing demand for solar cells might consume 85 to 98% of the world's silver reserves by 2050. The silver market is set to face a significant deficit in 2023, marking the third consecutive year of annual shortfalls, and this deficit is predicted to persist in the foreseeable future, according to Metals Focus. AndySchectman, CEO of Miles Franklin, underscores the surge in demand for silver across diverse sectors, including solar energy, warfare, and digital technologies. This increased demand coincides with a decrease in the global supply of silver, evidenced by shortfalls in recent years and an anticipated shortfall in the current year. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva advocates for alternative trade currencies, urging Brics nations to reduce reliance on the US dollar. This aligns with the broader trend of gold shifting from west to east, primarily to China and India, constituting nearly half of global gold demand. In 2021, Australia, France, India, the US, and the UK announced the One Sun, One World on-grid initiative to connect global solar energy grids. This initiative is expected to increase the demand for silver significantly. Schectman hints at a potential paradigm shift in the dynamics of the gold and silver market, with countries considering a move away from the US dollar and expressing a preference for physical metal delivery. The Eastern and AMP Southern empires rose in importance as the Western Empire transformed. Over 30 countries are considering joining Brics, with interest in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Andy suggests these developments could prompt a re-evaluation of precious metals pricing systems, potentially shifting to platforms like the Shanghai Gold Exchange. Before diving into AndySchectman's insightful interview, subscribe to our channel and give this video a big thumbs up.
You need to build an infrastructure or a war chest if you are a sovereign entity. And so that's exactly what they're doing. They're beating us at our own game. That game was to hold down the price of metals to make the dollar and the US bond market seem stronger than it was because of Gibson's paradox, the inverse relationship between real interest rates and the price of gold. So they held down the price of gold because it was the canary in the mine shaft. But what they didn't take into account are countries like China and India and United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. And all these countries are saying, thank you very much, we're going to stand for delivery. And like you said, we're very close to that moment where it's force majeure, where there's 1,800% more paper contracts than there are bars. Doesn't that sound familiar? I think that's what the Hunt brothers noticed in 1980. We are no different today than they were then. In fact, I could argue that the whole system is far more leveraged and undercapitalized. And you see events like this happening globally, and the transition away from the dollar immediately, that impacts not only the gold and silver market, but I also believe, excuse me, that we will see when that moment happens, within a few days or weeks, the price of a force majeure, baloney, COMEX, London Bullion Exchange market system that can actually be rehypothecated by 1,800% will move to a place that is more like cash and carry, like the Shanghai Gold Exchange. And that's why I think you slowly see them turning up the heat, where silver is $2 an ounce more in Shanghai and gold's $100 an ounce more in Shanghai than it is in London and New York. They will continue to turn up the heat. They will arbitrage all the metal over there. And simultaneously, you will see all hell break loose. And what you're talking about only adds credibility to that statement that this green endeavor in this digital world we live in, there's not enough silver. And I'm not going to continue to plug the Pickaxe article other than to say one thing. It's compelling when you look at the research he's done and talk about all of the silver going in to aid and abet the military-industrial complex's endeavor of continual war. And that's not even included in all of this. And it makes an argument that this is the real reason that they're lying about all this stuff, because that's how they keep the engine going. And I don't think they really factored in the rest of the world coming to a place where they're going to stand for delivery at any cost. So yeah, I think you're on to something, Bix, and it's just another piece of the puzzle that when this breaks, it will be something that I don't think people can imagine. Now, I don't sell silver to get wealthy. I sell it because it is wealth. And I think it is the most compelling investment I've ever heard of. But I'd never sell gold as an investment. But this is, or silver rather. And when you look at where it's priced, where the price ratio is, its historical context, geologically and price, going back thousands of years, the increase in demand in solar, in warfare, in green, in digital, and the decrease in supply, where, again, we're going to have another shortfall last year and a third shortfall this year in 2023. At what point does the whole system break? And what you're talking about, when you have mainstream revising numbers and saying, yeah, we're running out of silver, well, maybe it's more and more of this type of information that wakes up the public. Unfortunately, I feel it's going to be an event where all of a sudden silver just becomes unobtainium and goes to the moon, where before the mainstream wakes up. Your people will be nicely positioned comfortably in both cryptos and in metals in their own possession when this whole thing breaks. And if you see OPEC say, hey, we're done taking dollars, thanks for the memories, you guys are going green anyway, you signed an executive order saying so, like that.
In anticipation of the revelation of suppressed and manipulated information, industry expert Andy highlights the potential shift in public perception towards the value of transparent assets, particularly in blockchain and commodities like gold and silver. Reflecting on historical contexts, the fixed gold price against the US dollar for a significant part of American history is contrasted with the infamous Silver Thursday event in 1980, when the silver market collapsed following the Hunt brothers' attempt to corner it. Addressing recent trends, Andy underscores the unprecedented increase in central banks' gold acquisitions, contrasting this with his argument that silver manipulation serves different, possibly hidden motives. Analysts predict that, after a period of higher global interest rates, the silver market will benefit from robust demand from the solar industry, coupled with limited supply growth from mines. Silver's unique dual role as an investment and a crucial component in various industries, including jewelry, electronics, electric vehicles, and solar panels, is emphasized. In the context of a world increasingly adopting green and digital technologies, Andy warns that the strategic importance of silver might be overlooked, potentially placing countries at a disadvantage in the evolving global landscape. Let's get back to the interview.
I think the silver is more important than the gold. And you see the central banks buying more gold than at any time in history and doubling down on their acquisitions. And the same thing is true of silver. Gold is the barometer of the health of the currency. Silver is the tool that you need to make the system work. And although there is a 90% correlation in their movements throughout all of history, I think it's very obvious they've been holding down the price of gold and silver for the same yet different reasons. They've been holding down gold to make the system, the Western system, seem stronger than it was. The bond market and the dollar and the pound and all of the Western banks that played along this game. But silver's a different deal altogether. And I think that, there's something a little bit more sinister behind the silver side of things. And I do believe that they have been holding it down to meet an agenda. Like you said, there's silver going elsewhere that they're not talking about. I find it interesting. I mean, if you Google how much silver is in the tip of a Tomahawk cruise missile, you get 500 ounces. That's what it will say, almost exactly. Why do they not talk about that in the Silver Institute reports? I find that to be slightly interesting. But the bottom line is that in this world that is moving green and digital and that has advanced weaponry, that needs silver in its guidance systems and whatnot, we will have not only bankrupted the country of the silver and the gold, which is all being sent eastward, but we will put ourselves at a huge strategic disadvantage to the rest of the world. And when you look at the Brics countries and you put into the mix the Eurasian Economic Union and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, whom the president of Belarus, I've been saying they're all going to join together for 3 years. President of Belarus just said they need to join together and calling for a meeting. Along with the Belt Road Initiative, you're at 85% of human population. And all of these countries own all of the commodities. They own all of the rare earth metals. They own all the gold, all the silver, all the oil. You put all these countries into it, you're talking 80% of the world's oil, 75% of the world's natural gas, and the majority of the commodities. And we will wake up at a massive disadvantage globally in everything from technology to warfare as it is now. Now, maybe you know the numbers. I don't. Here's what it says. Now, I can't vouch for this number, but it says the United States heavy reliance on imported silver, 79% import reliance. So we're importing 79% of our silver. If that really is true, how scary is that? And I don't know that, I haven't vetted that number, but that's what I'm reading, 79% import reliant on here in the United States. So there are very few investments that have the dynamics that this does: an increase in demand, a decrease in supply, a disconnect between its 5,000-year history, both geologically and price relationship to gold. In the case of silver, it's wealth that's outlived everything the world's thrown at it for 5,000 years, including 2 world wars and hyperinflation and the Great Depression and every pandemic. And this will be no different. And this is why you see such a concerted effort by the people in the know, the central banks, to find every creative way to drain as much as they possibly can. And they've done it in a very methodical fashion. Most people say, well, why not just take it all? They got enough money. You do that, you cut off your nose to spite your face. You do it slowly. You suppress the price. You keep it volatile. You make everyone say, why the hell would I want that? We have 40-year high inflation and the world's in chaos. And what did it do? Well, to their point, I agree. People are well-read who say that. They're just reading the wrong stuff. And when it all comes out that this suppression is real, that the rehypothecation is real, that the draining of the exchanges has been real, that a world we are moving into, like Zoltan Pozsar says, away from opaque debt instruments into transparency like blockchain and commodities like gold and silver, people are going to be left in the dust because the people in this country believe the only road to retirement is paved with mutual funds, stock certificates, and 10-year treasuries. And that's going to be a real big problem as this continues to play out. Silver's the best place to be, in my opinion, in the world. And I say that as someone who owns metals companies, so take it for what it is.
In a volatile market with a weakening U.S. dollar, gold prices have surged to a 7-month high, reflecting a shift in investment strategies towards this precious metal. Silver enters a bullish consolidation phase and oscillates in a narrow trading band just above the $24 through Tuesday's first half of the European session. How will the ongoing trends in gold and silver impact broader investment strategies? And what factors could potentially influence the future trajectory of these precious metals in a fluctuating economic landscape? If the video resonates with you, join our community by subscribing to our channel and enabling notifications with the bell icon. Thank you for being a part of our community.